I'm the minister here at KUUF Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a queer, Hispanic, and white Pacific Northwesterner, and I'm wearing my rainbow stole today in honor of Kel and her deep engagement and involvement in queer community here in Kitsap County. Welcome to this tender moment as we come together gratefully to celebrate Kel Williams' life. May you feel comforted today by the gentle spirit of this place and by this light that we have streaming in today. What a beautiful afternoon to celebrate Kel, who loved the outdoors and nature so much. As we gather here today, we are here to share memories, to mourn our loss, and also to draw courage and understanding from each other as we face this part of our journeys in life. So I'd like to invite you to take a moment to quiet your cell phones if you have one here in the sanctuary. And if you're watching online, I invite you to settle into your chair and get comfortable where you're watching. Today is a time for us to open our hearts to the feelings that we're feeling, to the support of community connections that are possible here among each other today. And because grief and loss can sometimes constrict our bodies and our breathing, making it difficult to connect, I'd like to invite you to enter into our ceremony with a little body meditation. So placing both feet on the floor, if that's comfortable for you, opening your palms up, bringing your body into the space. I invite you to keep your eyes open on these windows and on the trees that are around us in the forest of the sanctuary. And remember Kel's love for the earth and for being outside in nature. And let's just take a couple of deep belly breaths together. We now open our hearts and our minds to the significance of this ceremony that we are entering. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we light a flaming chalice as a symbol of the hope and encouragement that we give and we receive from one another in times of grief. So I'd like to invite Bonner Sams to come forward and light the chalice for us. We now light this flame at the autumn equinox, a time when the day and the night are equal. And we remember that both darkness and light are necessary for life. We light this flame to fire our humble resolve to practice gratitude, to give thanks and praise for all that is our lives, our loves, and our losses. We light this flame to kindle our faith and patience with all that we cannot know for certain, what happens after death, and how our legacy continues in those we love. In this time when we search for understanding and acceptance in the face of loss, we light this chalice as a sign of our quest for truth, for meaning, and for community. We're here this afternoon to express our gratitude and to remember the preciousness of life itself, that we come forth from this mystery of a universe on this earth that has produced life, and that we live in this mystery and that we return to it in death. And in such a time, the life philosophies and the worldviews and the faiths that sustain us separately come together in a harmony across beliefs, assuring us that life holds goodness as well as suffering, and that love endures. In the face of loss, we gather together for love and for tenderness, for family and for community. We gather for a time of sharing and for pondering the truth and the meanings that we might find in the passing of a well-lived life. By our presence here, we pay tribute to the memory of one who was an important part of our lives, who was dear to us, to show our love and respect for all that she was. We've come together to show our love and support for her family, most especially for her partner, Marcy Mathis, and also for her sister, Dorothy William, who is in Indiana and could not be with us today. We know her loss is deep as well. So let this be a time both to affirm our grief and also to celebrate in gratitude for Kel's life, and with reverence for all life and the impact that she had on us with her gentle presence, and on this community, and on Marcy, our friend, and in this wild world that is made so precious by our love. Please join me in singing or listening as you wish to our opening song. This is Mother Earth, Beloved Garden. The words will be on screen, and you're welcome to rise in body, or if you prefer to stay seated, you're welcome to rise in spirit. I'd like to share a reflection on grief and remembrance. This is adapted from Karen Lindsay. In this time of grief, there are some things we ought to remember. In particular, that we don't have to try to put on a smile and put the grief behind us. It's hard to get by that way. And while there be times to set the grief aside to take care of what's in front of us, it's also okay and important to feel our feelings. It's a both and, a paradox. There's no one way to grieve, and it can be challenging to remember this when people react to a shared loss in different ways. Each of you here, I know, has your own losses as well as the loss of Kel, and when someone dies, it often pulls on the other losses that we've experienced. Typical reactions include anger and sadness, withdrawal, stopping everything to mourn, or not feeling much at all at first and continuing on with one's life. It's important to let yourself grieve in the way that your emotions and body tell you to. There may be days of sadness that give way to confusion and disorientation, because grief ebbs and flows. It ignores our busy lives, It ignores our busy lives, and it interferes with what we think are our needs. We may set aside time to grieve only to find numbness, and then find ourselves driving or listening to music or grocery shopping and feeling those tears arising unbidden. So this task of grief is paradoxical. It is to hold on to the parts of the person who has died that will be ours forever, the stories and the memories and the love. And at the same time, we also honor what we've lost and we let go. There are ways to make our grieving more bearable and to make our load easier to carry. I know you know this, but part of that is taking care of our bodies, getting sleep, eating well. If you're not able to eat well, ask a friend to bring you some meals. Try to get some gentle exercise. It's important to have people to listen to us talk about our losses when we want to talk. And it's also important to be patient with the process. Grief is hard work, and it can be slow work, and it can take many months. Some of us grieve better when we have our hands busy, like when we're quilting. Loss often sets us on a new trajectory, and we slowly find our way to a new normal. And that loss and that grief will always be part of who we are, and we learn how to carry our new burden, and we're not the same as we were before. This is all normal. It's not easy, but it is normal. When you're alone, you may find yourself having conversations with Kel and with other loved ones in your head or in your imagination as you adapt and learn to bring her presence and her love into your life as you move forward. You may also find yourself in reverie and in memory. Members of this community here at KUUF remember Kel as a gentle soul who loved the mountains and the ocean. Members here also remember that Kel was very active in the queer community, attending gay bingo and attending dances when there were still very few places to gather as someone who was out and queer in Kitsap County. In those times, she and Marcy did some awareness raising around AIDS, and she loved attending Pride events, especially Seattle Pride. One year, she and Marcy attended 7 Pride festivals in 1 year, all the way from Vancouver, BC, down to San Diego, California, including, of course, Seattle and Kitsap. And there's a great article out on the memory table about that if you want to take a look. Kel also deeply enjoyed cruising to Mexico, especially those cruises that were organized by PFLAG for allies and friends and folks who are queer, because it was comfortable there to be among kindred spirits and folks who were supportive. Kel also especially loved attending sports events such as Husky football, Husky women's basketball, and Seattle Storm and the Mariners. And you can see on this beautiful quilt that Marcy made for Kel's sister, Dorothy Wilhelm, her teams are represented. When Kel turned 50, this was an early date, Marcy took her to a Mariners game and put "Happy Birthday, Kel" on the Jumbotron. That was a highlight. She also loved airplanes, trips to the Boeing Air Museum, and her musical interests ran to classic rock and iconic queer bands and singer-songwriters, including some we heard earlier, Melissa Etheridge, the Indigo Girls, folk singer Lucy Blue Tremblay. Kel's life also included a lot of messiness, like many of our lives do. There were many medical events, and she retired early on disability. Her early childhood was hard, which she wrote about, and there's a poem on the memory table as well, as her mother was an alcoholic, and her family left the family when she was 4. So she was estranged from her father until her young adulthood, when they reconnected. A bright spot in her family story is when she met her half-sister, Dorothy Wilhelm of Indiana, for the first time 10 years ago. They developed a close friendship, and they started talking on the phone every day. So that was really a beautiful friendship that she was able to develop later in life. What you may not know about Kel is that she was a deep reader and a contemplative and a writer. She kept journals and she numbered them. She had shelves full of her work going back to the 1980s. She also wrote short stories, including a whimsical story on winning the lottery, which she wrote as a journal entry describing the experience. While Kel may not have won the literal lottery, she certainly won the lottery in meeting her life partner, Marcy. May her yes to life and to their great love be a guide to us, the ones who continue on and remember Kel. Let's listen to what is stirring within our own hearts now as we contemplate these memories of Kel and listen to the music of the rivers. This piece is called Kore Rio Kore by David Lance and is played by our music coordinator here, Brian Kenny. To our communities. Though each of us needs time to grieve alone, we also need to return to our communities. We need to seek one another out as our sources of strength and to share our memories, because it takes support as well as courage to say yes to all of life, including loss. To honor our memories of Kel as someone who also said yes to living a full life. Each of you has personal memories of your friendship with Kel and Marcy, and they'll be a treasure to share with each other, bringing tears and laughter and smiles and gratitude for that special relationship. Kel's life lives on in the memories of those of you who participated in her life. Such memories are unbound by life and by death. And as her living memory, you possess the greatest gift that one person can give to one another, which is to remember them. I'd now like to invite Kel's partner, Marcy Mathis, to come forward and offer a memory and a reflection on their life together. And I believe she also has some reflections from Kel's sister, Dorothy, as well.
Let's see if I can get through this. First, I want to say how much I appreciate all the support of family and friends. I don't think I've said that enough during this time. This last year has been hard, and I don't know how I would have made it through without all of you. While I miss her terribly, and losing her left a huge hole in my heart, I am thankful for the 20 years with her that I did have. It all began in this very room in 2002 when KUUF was co-hosting a Lucy Blue Tremblay concert, and the room was filled with lesbians. I had an extra ticket to a Husky football game, and I remember looking around the room and thinking, surely there's somebody here that would want to go to a football game. And then I remembered that Kel had mentioned missing PFLAG meetings because of Monday Night Football. And so I thought, well, maybe she'd be interested. And so I asked her, and during the time we spent together back and forth to several Husky football games, and we got to know each other, and we connected. So she called me the activist in the family, but she was often right with me until her health made it difficult to travel. She followed me to many conferences, Seattle Marriage Equality Town Halls, national and regional PFLAG conferences, the task forces Creating Change, and annual conference down in Portland called CSTI that was nicknamed Activist Boot Camp. And she even went to Hawaii with me for a Society of Women Engineers conference. She would also lament about being the spouse of a quilter, but also encourage my passion and even put up with stopping at several quilt stores on a drive we took to Vancouver, BC. I'm not sure she ever completely understood the way I process things internally and don't always talk about how I feel, but she learned to recognize that that's just how I am. And she helped me balance it by encouraging my silly side. And we did a lot of laughing. Early on, she put little smiley stickers on all sorts of my things, and I still find them and think of her. Even while she was in the hospital and recovering from surgery, she often still had her sense of humor. She had one surgery on New Year's Day, and when she was coming out of anesthesia, the doctor was asking her the normal questions. Do you know where you are? Do you know why you're here? And the doctor asked her what year it was. And she started to say 2023, and then you could see the flicker of recognition on her face. She realized it was New Year's Day, so she told the doctor that he was a funny guy. So as Reverend Victoria mentioned, Kel had a sister she didn't know about until 10 years ago. They were both raised as single kids and were so happy to find each other. Dorothy lives in Indiana and is there recovering from surgery and waging her own war against cancer. She wanted me to tell you how much she loved Kel, how happy she was to have found her, and how much she enjoyed the visits they had and all the times they were able to talk on the phone. Her loss is really deep. So Kel's last few months were hard, but I am grateful for the time I was able to take off work to visit her in the hospital and in rehab, and to do what needed to happen to let her go home for the last week of her life. It meant a lot to her to be able to go home, and I'm really thankful that it worked out that she could do that, even though it was only for a week. The little things I could do for her became so important. After her stroke in March, she wasn't able to swallow well enough to eat and drink, but she was able to enjoy ice chips. So that was one of the things I could do, especially while she was in rehab, and the nurses just didn't have time to help with that kind of thing. So I played music. We talked about life and death and what she wanted. And she wanted to be, they call it soil transformation. It's basically they compost you. And that's what she wanted, and so that's what we did. I kept telling her that I would miss her terribly, but that I would be okay. And I had 20 years of wonderful memories to keep in my heart forever. Since I didn't know when the last time I could say it would be, I just kept telling her that. So again, I'm so thankful for the support of family and friends through all of this. And she was too. She appreciated every card that she got. I would take them to her in the hospital and read them to her. Most days I still can't believe she is really gone. So often things happen during the day, and for a split second I think about telling her, and then I remember she's gone, but she lives on in here. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. I want to honor the courage it takes to stand here and share a story and tell us what's going on in your heart when that's not your usual way of processing. So we're here with you. At this time, I'd like to open up the microphone to sharing from the community. If you'd like to share a brief story, you're welcome to come forward and use the mic so that everyone can hear you in the room. And I encourage you to share briefly from the heart so that all who wish to speak can have a moment. And if your story feels too tender to share at this time, just remember that there will be other opportunities to share your stories with one another after the service at our reception and later on with Marcy in the weeks and months to come. So is there anyone who would like to come forward and share a story?
I knew Marcy, I knew Kel through Marcy with the KISAP Safe Schools. And it's not one that she mentioned because they didn't go off to conferences or anything. We had monthly meetings and we had different, we still are going. And we did things at Pride and all kinds of things. But Kel was always with Marcy. And so I got to know her through talking with her at these different events, meetings and things like that. And like Reverend Victoria said, she's quiet and kept things within herself. But she listened intently to everyone, and I felt like she was right on my wavelength in terms of what I was feeling, and she always had something that she could offer that made me feel better. And I just appreciated that so much about Marcy, and about Kel, I'm sorry, Marcy, but about you for bringing her to us. I just wanted to say I'm really sorry, Marcy, and I didn't realize she was so sick for so long, and I wish I could have been more of a support for you during that time. I'm sorry about that.
Well, Marcy, everyone here loves you, and we're here because we love you. And sometimes you might feel alone, but you're not. You know, we all love you. And I didn't know Kel very well because she was so quiet, and but it makes me really happy that Kel's funeral was a place where I could wear my favorite shirt. Where you said, please wear shirts like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend V. I first met Kel through Out Kitsap Gay Bingo, and I don't remember. I volunteered. I was on their bingo committee, and I don't remember if Kel was on that same committee, but I do remember meeting her through Out Kitsap's Gay Bingo, and when I started attending here in 2010, I was really pleased that you and Kel were both attending here also, and yes, she was a quiet soul, and but I've always been very fond of her, and you also, Marcy. Much love. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Kennedy. I've known Kel since the 80s. Yeah, we had a lot of things in common and some things we didn't. A love of sports and music, the same music, jazz and rock music. Yeah, I was really surprised when she loved jazz too. She introduced me to some groups. She helped me a lot in later years talking to her on the phone. It was nice to have somebody that I could talk to, tell my problems and stuff. She accepted that. Sports, of course, we both love sports, football and basketball and the Mariners. Have a few arguments there maybe sometimes. Not some, the players. Yeah, I really enjoyed knowing Kel. I was really grateful and fortunate that I got to know her over the years. Marcy too, really special people. And I've really missed her. Sorry, don't have somebody to share with like I used to.
It's not on?
I haven't heard.
It's a little quiet.
Oh. I didn't know Kel very well, but I first met her at this amazing service that we have at the, I'm going to say it wrong, winter equinox? No, the solstice. There we go. And every time I went, I saw her, and I was so curious about her. I never really, you know, she's quiet, and I never really knew much about her. But I just so appreciated that you were sort of an organizer of it, and that she was there. It became my favorite holiday.
Do we have one or two more stories? All right, well then I invite you to be sitting with it and be thinking of what you'd like to share at our reception when we have a chance to connect with each other. And now we're going to be watching a slideshow, which may jog some of your memories. So we'll be remembering Kel in photos. And again, I invite you just to notice what memories are coming up and what feelings are coming up as we listen also to a piece by Libby Roderick called "How Could Anyone Ever Tell You?"
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less that your loving is a miracle, how deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Kel Williams has passed through the doors of death into the wondrous mystery from which we come and to which we return. And yet she will live forever in our hearts. Today, let us be united in the conviction that the gentle moments, the excitement of cheering for teams, the joy of attending pride gatherings, and the quiet walks in nature that we shared with Kel are still very real, and that these do not pass away. Whenever a death cuts across life, we're left with a certain incompleteness. I know that you'll miss Kel, and that her death, as any death, leaves some things unfinished. I'm sure there are yet other things that you wanted to share with her, and she with you. Our task is to let what has been be enough. May you always remember the gifts and cherish the memories that come from knowing her and the blessing of having been part of her life. And in the midst of brokenheartedness, may you know the grace of love that endures, that sustains us, a legacy that lasts beyond death. In the words of the Indigo Girls, from their song, Power of Two, you know the things that I'm afraid of, I'm not afraid to tell. And if we ever leave a legacy, it's that we loved each other well. We now extinguish our chalice, and with this flame, we do not extinguish the light of memory. We do not extinguish the fire of commitment to our family and friends, or the warmth of joys and sorrows shared. We carry this light forwards through acts of care, which we offer to one another now and in the future moments yet to come. Thank you, Bonner. And thank you all for being here and bearing witness. There will be time for more storytelling over treats and beverages in the foyer. Thank you very much to Vernita Byron for preparing our hospitality today. And thank you, Greg Relaford, for assisting us on technology. We appreciate your support. Please stay for the festivities and enjoy sharing the photos that are on the memory table as well. There are, if you haven't had a chance yet, there are little quilt hexagons for you to sign, which Marcy will be making into a memory quilt for herself. And then this memory quilt, you're welcome to come on up and take a look. This one she'll be sending to Kel's sister, Dorothy. We're going to close with a song, Blue Boat Home, which honors Kel's deep connection to nature and to the earth and to the ocean. You're welcome to sing along. The words will be on screen. And also later on, if you would like to join me and Marcy, we're going to be scattering some of Kel's soil in our memorial garden.
Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions.